Okay, 1, 2, 3 seems to be going. Yeah, so if they want you to wear a mask, they want you to really like kill yourself, because if you don't have oxygen, your brain dies little by little. You don't notice it because it shows many years later, maybe 10 years later or 20 years later. And you have your dementia.
Oh, that explains it. So that's why, but I might have been wearing my mask some 20 years ago.
Really
that
It's
explains it.
very harmful. I say, if there is a good reason, okay, why not? Okay, but there's no reason. Nothing has been proven. There's no law which says so. So why would you
they have
kill
achieved
yourself?
something. They have achieved, on one hand, they achieved a sort of hysteria list at the beginning, some months ago, but they also achieved something, because it seems that people who hate these mask wearing rules have no choice but to, to think about it, to discuss it, to protest against it. So even though you might not be wearing a mask, even though you might not be following some of the other so-called rules of the game, you're still forced to think about it, you're still forced to discuss it. And if you go and organize a sort of a rally against this, some people did out there in Germany and somewhere, still it's sort of, it becomes part of your agenda.
It
And
does,
instead of
It's
thinking
negative
about,
agenda.
yes.
And again, it's really funny, or well, accepted, because it's not like you say, oh, people who hate masks, or people who hate, I don't know, vaccines, or I don't know. It's not people who hate something, it's people who love being healthy. Yeah. If somebody tells you, okay, now go and bang your head against the wall, 10 times each time you enter a room, you would at least ask why. And they can't explain it. The virus has not been isolated, nobody has ever seen it. So something causes the illness, something causes this serious disease, which again is really strange, because it's very different for different people. Is it even the same thing? So apparently it's many factors affecting people. A virus, which could be just a normal virus we have every year, just a normal flu, and maybe some bacteria, maybe some spraying, because people get sprayed in the cities. Then maybe like chemtrails, if you take that into account. Then maybe 5G, maybe something else. We don't know. There has been no research which says, oh, we found the virus which causes it. There has been no research. Yeah. Again, if you talk about masks from the scientific, medical point of view, it's pointless. It's rather pointless, and it does more harm than help. And then again, that's how, let's say, the media reacts. They call you a hater. They use negative words, anti-vaccine or anti-mask wearer or something, to make you look negative. But you're not negative, you're not against masks as such or vaccines as such, you're against what they are at the moment. You are not against that, you're for being happy and healthy. That's all. You're for being mature, really, checking out your sources rather than just believing someone on the telly. Because all they have is talk and talk and talk, and there's no proof of anything. And meanwhile, everybody panics, and like we said the other time, you have fear. Living in fear is really bad for your health. You have psychological pressure, you have physical pressure, you have pressure like, oh, we are not letting you do anything unless you do as you're told. You're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your money, you won't be able to buy anything, you won't be able to travel. It's all psychological pressure. Then you have the physical pressure. If you're wearing a mask, again, you deprive yourself of oxygen. It's really bad. If you isolate, which again is a very strange idea. You isolate people who are sick, not people who are healthy. So if you sit in 4 walls, you don't get exercise, you don't get much fresh air. Again, it's not very good. Again, for many people it's a psychological pressure. And then on top of it you have the actual factors like viruses, bacteria, and all the things. And then you're surprised, oh, why do people get sick? So what we do need is to learn how to make our immune system stronger. Not how to fill it with deadly so-called medicine. Some people need medicine, it's okay, but again, you have to be careful about what you put in your body. If you can do without it, maybe it's better to do without it. If you need it, you use it, no problem. If you need it, you use it. Why not? But many people don't need it. Yeah, many people just want to get through it faster, but they don't really need it. Because if you take your medicine, your flu ends in 2 weeks. You don't take medicine, your flu ends in a fortnight. Yeah, really there's no difference.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't take any medicine when I get a flu or a cold. It really makes no difference. Whatever you do, you may do something, you may not do anything, just basic normal things, like you get lots of liquid to drink, some good tea, you get a lot of rest. Oh, hello, Dominique. You get a lot of rest, and that's really all you need. If it gets much worse, then yeah, maybe you should get some medicine, maybe you should ask a doctor, but not just, oh, I feel a little bit down, oh, where's my medicine? Medicine. Yeah, because you get addicted. Your body gets addicted and it gets weaker and weaker each time. And then again, oh, surprise, how come we are so miserable? So it's simple logic. What you practice is what you get. If all your life you practice a dependency on medicine, on pills and drugs, yeah, and you don't do any exercise or anything, then why be surprised that at old age people just fall apart? Whether if you lead a good strong way of life, I'm not saying you should be a vegetarian and just do your exercises. If you live in the country, for instance, you don't have to do any exercises. And look at the Scots. Live until 500 years, 600 years, no problem. Yeah. Because I know someone who was over 90, he was well over 90, you wouldn't give him more than 50. He was running around, climbing roofs, fixing cars, I don't know, you name it. Yeah, no problem. Okay, but now today we're not in Scotland, we're not in Ireland. Today we come to Wales, kind of. We have Robert Graves, a war poet.
Talking about Graves, okay.
Talking about Graves, yeah. But he's not a very grave poet. He's got some very nice poetry. So, 1916, he writes When I'm Killed. It gets published in 1918, in 2 years, in, I like the name, Fairs and Fusiliers. Because you would think, what can be more different? And yet, here we are, Fairs and Fusiliers. And as you can see from his dates, he did not really get killed in that war or next war. he lived almost, almost 100 years. That's, well, exactly 90, isn't it?
90 years. Yeah.
90 years. But obviously when he was writing it, he was doing it earnestly, because what's 1916?
Yeah, 1916 is in the middle of the First World War, and obviously he was, in 1916 he was something like 20, 21 years old, so he was one of those soldiers fighting in the war.
Because in Russia everybody talks about the Second World War, and nobody talks much about the First one, while we in Britain, the First World War is more important for us. Kind of, okay, when I'm killed. When I'm killed, don't think of me, buried there in Cambrian wood, nor as in Zion think of me, with the intolerable good. And there's one thing that I know well, I'm damned if I'll be damned to hell. So when I'm killed, don't wait for me, walk in the dim corridor. In heaven or hell, don't wait for me, or you must wait forevermore. You'll find me buried, living dead, in these verses that you've read. So when I'm killed, don't mourn for me. Short poor lad, so bold and young, killed and gone, don't mourn for me. On your lips my life is hung. Oh friends and lovers, you can save your playfellow from the grave. What do you say? What's your impression?
Interesting, and again, very often when you think of someone who's fighting in the war, of course, these people always risk their lives. They might be killed, and many of them do get killed, and the idea is often that we, sitting there at the comfort of our homes, are thinking of those soldiers, we are waiting for them, and we pray that they will be killed. And that's also reflected in some of the war poetry, at least in that little volume that I know of. Again, in Russia it's the Second World War that's more important, and there's this famous poem about wait for me and then I'll be back. So it stands in direct opposite of what Robert Graves says here. Don't wait for me, don't mourn for me. And again, waiting for him means someone, family member, a loved one waiting for him, but it can also mean, as far as I understand it, the hell waiting for him. So what he's saying is, you, someone in the hell, don't wait for me, I'll be damned.
And in heaven too.
And in heaven too. And it's sort of, again, you might say that it's something that, that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't believe in life after death.
No,
but his belief is that when you mourn for me, you sort of lose me, whereas when you remember me, my words, the lines I've written, you save your loved one from the grave, you save me from the grave. And again, there's much which is playful about this poem, and it's no coincidence that he's not just our friend, our family member, or our loved one. He is our playfellow.
Yeah.
So again, the war, to many of us, including soldiers, often looks like a silly play, or maybe not a silly play, but a play. And their life and death are usually serious, but here he is quite willing to play sort of the game that's of death. So unlike people, again, getting back to where we started, unlike people being over-concerned with their health, with their well-being, with their something, he says, I'll be damned, but you wouldn't have me being worried, being scared to death. If I'm to die, I'll die. That's it. Oh, again, what I was saying was just my impression, and of course it's not quite sort of elegant, unlike the poem, but of course it's always difficult to sort of translate poems into normal words, because the meanings in poems, as we always see, go much deeper and are much more diverse than what a single person can comprehend by sort of reading it, thinking of it, and maybe sometimes even sort of being favorably or unfavorably impressed by it.
Well, we can try.
Yes, we can try. So because that's something like, again, it's always interesting that you can, instead of digging out someone from his or her grave, you dig out lots of meanings, lots of what underpins every poem.
Yeah, because this poem is interesting for many reasons, and one of them is how it belongs to two groups, let's say, of poetry. So we have war poetry,
yes,
and then we have another body of poetry, which is on your lips my life is hung. In these lines that you read, you will find me living dead. Yeah, which again is a big tradition. The earliest is said to be Egyptian, old ancient Egyptian. Again, you can never be sure, because how to translate ancient Egyptian? Maybe it's just the translators imagining it. We never know. But still, suppose it's true, and why not? It can be true. So that would be the oldest poem of the sort, and it's like I made myself a monument which will overlast the pyramids, and that is my poetry.
And of course there are, as we say, there are lots of poems where death is discussed, and in many of these death is of course an unwelcome guest, but also death is sort of depriving the poet of what there is that's most important to him or to her. Here again, death is not welcome, but if it happens to our poet, he's not going to sort of write, if he's feeling the death is approaching him, he's not going to sort of write a poetry full of tears, saying, okay, I'm about to die, I fear for my life, and so on. So he emerges as a very strong and, well, self-confidence is probably not a good word, but there's a sort of confidence in him. Confidence, not in him, it's confidence in poetry, confidence in when you do remember people, when you do remember their favorites, their poems or their favorite sayings, or there's a clear image in mind, then this person is not completely dead. Of
Oh,
course,
maybe.
of course, of course. I was remembering this usual thing that some of these sort of so-called existential psychotherapists like saying. They say death is our major fear as human beings, and we go at great lengths to sort of deny death. I don't think that this statement is true, and I don't really think that this poem is about denying death. I would rather think it's like sort of defying death's final, the finality. Yes.
Death thou shalt die. Well, yeah. So if we come back to all those different poems, because we have quite a number. We have it in like classical ancient poetry. Who was it? One of the Latins, I think. One of them. And we have it, well, really throughout all history. Now and then people write lines like that. I might be dead, but you may read my poem and then I'll talk to you from the page. Sometimes it's light and playful, like with Shakespeare, who says, "Hey woman, come here, would you like to be immortal?" Yeah. Sometimes it's more serious. So if we look at this poem in the context of other poetry of the kind, which says, if you're a poet, you can still talk to people when you're dead, you're not here. Then how is it similar or different?
Oh.
How is it different?
There's a playful attitude that characterizes this poem. Playful not in a childish way, but something that is probably more typical for a grown-up man who's also a soldier. The difference, it's something like, I'm just trying to remember this American word that they use, sort of like devil may care or something, attitude to life. Yes, life is sick. No, okay.
Let me check on. Like he doesn't care about being alive.
Do you think that if you... He does care, but, well, 7 more minutes. Do you think that cameras are also supposed to be wearing masks?
Oh, maybe.
Yes, what happens to a camera wearing masks? 7 more minutes. But,
Yes, but what happens, I guess, what's the difference is if you're a soldier in the middle of a war, how real is death to you?
Very real.
Very real. So it's not like he doesn't care whether he lives or dies. No, he cares. But he knows his chances. Yeah, he faces his chances.
Yeah.
He says, when I'm killed, not when I die eventually. When I'm killed, and he means soon. How does it change the poem?
Well, it changes because it's not just the fact of life that death is inevitable. It's something that can happen to him next day, or it may happen to him before he's able to finish this poem. So it's the possibility of being killed is really high, and it's interesting that you are sort of, if your chances of being killed are really high, you are sort of you are half dead already, but he's not half dead. He's not dead at all. He's full of life, full of vigor, full of something. That's also probably tells us that he loves life. Although life to him also means being a soldier, being killed, and maybe, as was often the case in the First World War, being killed for a reason that's not of your immediate concern, not of like fighting the enemy who is invading your country, but rather fighting the enemy that you didn't know. Well, you didn't know why you're fighting. So on one hand, again, talking about the First World War, there are many books which are not poetical works but rather prose works that were sort of inspired in a negative way by World War I, and they often tell of that the war didn't make sense to the soldiers. They often tell us of the stories of the soldiers experiencing huge problems after they get back from war. So it stands again in direct contrast to
it
these.
doesn't make sense to the soldiers when, let's say, the government didn't do a good job.
Well, but
the normal situation is that people get inspired to go and to die and be happy about it, because otherwise how do you wage a war?
Yeah.
You must make people believe to be happy to die. So how do you do it? How do you do it?
But of course the problem with the First World War is that some of the soldiers, the war was sort of senseless because they didn't really understand the purpose of the war. Again, in Russia we usually contrast World War I and World War II because very often World War I was seen as a war that was sort of unfair on each and every side of the conflict, whereas in World War II we have two sides that are fighting each other, and one of them is clearly much more evil and they are the invaders and so on and so forth. So I don't know, is it the poem I mentioned, the poem about the Second World War, Wait for Me and I'll Be Back, was and I think was indeed used by sort of propaganda, or maybe in a good sense of the word, if there is a good sense of the word, propaganda. But could you use this poem for propaganda purposes? Probably not.
Yes, probably yes.
Probably yes.
Okay. Because he doesn't say, oh, war is horrible, you get killed and your life is over. No, his attitude to it is he's ready to die.
Yeah.
He doesn't mind it.
Yeah.
So he thinks it's right. It's the right thing to do. When I'm killed. So it's not straightforward. It depends how you present it to people. You can say, oh look, he doesn't mind being killed. He knows that his spirit will live on. We will remember him either as a war hero or in his verses, and you can be the same. Yeah, because in his verse you're alive too if you're a soldier. Because it's not about him personally, it's about all of you. Yeah, what you do is big and important for your country. Or you can say, well, maybe he's just a poet, maybe he takes war as a kind of a shamanic opportunity of being a good poet. Or maybe you can say something else, maybe you can say, oh no, you just get killed, there's no hope.
Pronunciation is Cambrin,
So it's in the past.
It's in farms.
Interesting.
A farming and light industrial village southwest of Lee. If it doesn't tell me much, but yeah, the churches. Well, the church and the graveyard.
Yeah, so they had a church and a graveyard there. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. That's
So we talked a little bit about the title of the first words. I think it's working.
I don't know why, but it is.
So he says, when I'm killed, as opposed to when eventually I die, and as opposed to if I'm killed. So if he says, when I'm killed, that again is a certainty. And do you know many people who can just nonchalantly say, oh, you know, when I'm killed, just
No, not really. Again, this omniscient, whatever the word, psychologists tell us that each of us cannot comprehend his or her own death. We deny it in the sense that we think, well, maybe it can come, but it's not when. It's sort of if.
Yeah.
And there's
because
much
we're
in the-
immortal.
sort
I think
of,
we're
yeah.
immortal.
And
That's woman.
somehow again, and that might be true to a certain extent. Somehow each of us, they say, each of us looks at him or herself as being an exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Yes, people die, people get
Not
killed in the war.
me.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, he is fine with the fact. He doesn't think about it. He doesn't have to speculate about it. He has to go on beyond it, because that's an established fact. Yeah, there's no point in arguing with it. He knows it will happen, even though, as we know, it won't. But still, to him it's really, really.
Yeah, it's a matter of sort of chance. So you know that maybe 10,000 or something people are going to be killed in that area. So it's, and again, 10,000 is a huge number, in fact. And when you think of that it's just not people but numbers who are dead. But here we have a person with his own ideas, with his own feelings. So that's, I mean, it also makes this experience much more personal and
yeah, because it's one of the soldiers.
yeah, it's on the one hand it's one of the soldiers, so it's one of these thousands and thousands and thousands of men who look alike, basically, to an outside observer, maybe also to the war general. But on the other hand, when I am killed, means it is I who gets killed, and not just a guy who is one of those 10,000 people to be killed.
And he understands it's a murder. He's going to be killed. Because even if that's a war, still it's a murder. Still he gets killed. It's not a good death. It's not a peaceful death. But he's a soldier, and that's his life, or that's his duty, and he accepts it. When I'm killed. And then we are lucky to have the original, first version. If you can make out his handwriting, because you don't think much about your handwriting apparently when you're writing a war poem. So when I'm killed, don't something else for me. Pray, preach, search. I'm not sure what it said, but it was something else, and then he changed it to "Don't think of me." I think originally it was something for me.
Yeah, it looks like.
Again, that's what we expect when somebody is skilled. If he's not a totally lonely person, there's someone who thinks about him, someone who cares, and his death causes a reaction, an expected reaction, like worrying or being upset, being sad, being tormented by his death. And he says, "Oh, that's okay. Don't think of me. Don't even think of me. No, don't think of me buried there in Cambrian wood. The rising sign think of me with the intolerable good." Yeah, it's not like don't think of me at all, but don't think that I'm the body which lies in Cambrian wood. Don't think that I'm somewhere far away in hell or heaven. Which again is a very bold statement, because that's what people like to be looking forward to. Eternal life, better if it's in heaven. He says, no, that's not about me. Buried there in Cambrian wood. And Cambrian wood, again, it is very interesting because, like we just found out, it's somewhere in France. But at the same time, it has Cambry, like Wales in it, Cambrian, like Welsh. Because he, I think he's Welsh.
Well, yeah, he was part of this Welsh Fusiliers group,
Yeah.
dispatched there.
And that again, there's always relation between land of the kind. So you have the field, a faraway field, and now it's an English field because English people lie there. And now it's not far away foreign soil, now it's the English soil because it's mixed with the bodies of the English. And here happens the same thing. On one hand it's Cambrian, or how do you say it in French? Somewhere far away in France, but at the same time by them, the Cambrian people being there, it becomes their wood. Not in the sense of ownership, but spiritually, because their bodies will be mixed with that soil. So the Cambrian wood. And the wood, again, wood. Why do we have wood? Not just in Cambrian place, Cambrian yard, Cambrian field, but Cambrian wood.
Well, the obvious reason is that the soldiers were obviously stationed there in the Cambrian wood, and again, if I don't know how typical French forests look, and maybe Cambrian is not typical, but you have trees and trees and trees and trees there, and if I imagine again a typical graveyard, I have this burial stones, monuments, crosses there and there and there and there. So wood might look like sort of a huge graveyard.
Well, maybe.
Вам нужно пройти в арку, потом подняться. Вам нужно...
But anyway, on one hand, wood is a magical place because it's strange, it's full of some dangers, and more so at war, where you literally don't know what might be waiting for you or who might be waiting for you. But again, buried there in Cambrian wood, is it a normal place for burial?
No, it isn't.
In what way?
Well, normal places for burial are places specially designated for the purpose. Again, a normal place would be a churchyard or something at that time, and under the circumstances which were far from normal, wood might be a place. And again, in churchyard, when you bury someone, you usually write who lies there. With soldiers, there's probably no proper burial ceremony. There's often doubt as to what the names are, and you can end and then lots and lots of soldiers get buried without anyone being aware of this wood being their sort of resting, their place of eternal rest.
So these first two lines, they speak of a death which is in many ways wrong. We can put it that way. Yeah, so it's violent. He's killed, and he's buried in a faraway place, not at home where he should be, not in Cambrai, but in Cambrian Wood in France, and not in the holy place like churchyard where you're supposed to be buried, but in the wood. So it's wrong. That's when we look at the earthly plane. Yeah. So he said, well, technically my body is here, but I'm not where my body is, I'm somewhere else. Okay, where might you be then? Nor as in Zion think of me with intolerable good. Well, the first version was not as in heaven think of me. Then he changes it to Zion. Now why? How is Zion better than heaven?
Well, that's a question to someone who knows much about Zion. Zion is a mountain, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you sort of, maybe it's important because the mountain, at the foot of the mountain, you are there where all of us are. As you ascend it, you sort of get closer and closer and closer to heaven. But
no, you can say Zion in the sense of heaven.
Okay.
I guess, but what's the difference? Why say Zion, not heaven? I don't know, but maybe Zion is more interesting because everybody says heaven, but not many people say Zion. Then again, if you say Zion, then you think about the Old Testament. If you say heavens, you may think about the New Testament, you may think about the Old Testament, but Zion is Old Testament. It's about Moses.
Yeah.
Not as in Zion think of me. So what happens in the Old Testament? Again, lots of violence if you look at it.
Yeah.
Lots of rage.
And in the Old, and we are told in the New Testament that those who were dead before Jesus Christ were just dead, but Jesus was someone who was able to overcome death. So now death is not eternal. It loses its power over us.
Because if you look at the Jewish tradition, pre-Christianical, there is no clear definition of what happens after you die. It's very ambiguous. It's like, oh, you go to a nice place and you'll be happy there. You'll have a nice body there. It doesn't really go into details. You're good here, you'll be happy there. That's all. That's all you need to know. Well, Christianity is more specific about it.
Yeah.
So Zion maybe it's to make it more important. Oh, no, I'm not there. It's posh. I'm just a simple soldier. How can I be not in heaven? Because heaven, again, is okay. Anyone can go to heaven. But Zion, that's a really VIP space. Very strict face control and stuff. I'm just a simple person, just a normal lad. Just a normal chap. You will not find me there. Nor does Zion think of me with the intolerable good. What's the intolerable good? How can good be intolerable? What's intolerable good and how good can be intolerable?
Maybe it's sort of your sins being forgiven and you ending up in heaven despite the fact you died a violent death and despite the fact you, as a soldier...
Well, that's a plus. To die a violent death, isn't that a plus?
Well, I mean, if you die as a saint, you often die you often get killed by someone, but there's a huge difference between a death of a saint and the death of a soldier. Maybe.
In what way?
Maybe.
Because
Maybe
again, if you look at tradition, then traditionally soldiers are martyrs because they die not for themselves, they die for everyone else. Yeah. And they sacrifice their lives. Again, not because of some kind of greed or something, but for other people.
Yeah. Well, the difference might be, or might not be, that when you're a soldier, it's not really you who decides that you are going to be a martyr.
Well, it's really you, because you can always turn rugby, turn code, run away. And people do that too. Again, free will. Yeah, it happens. It does. Because even if somebody tells you, okay, now go and get killed, you can say, no thanks. Maybe they will kill you for saying no thanks, but again, you have that option. It might not be a nice option, but you have it. So it's always you who decides it. Again, why do you say yes or no? Not just what you say, but why you say. But anyway, we talk about the intolerable good. And what's the intolerable good? How can good be intolerable? And why he is not there?
I don't know. Sometimes people do good things to us, and very often when there's this poor guy and you do something good for him, you sort of get somewhere high on the hierarchy, on that mount of Zion. And although you did what you think was good, somehow you, by sort of supplying this person's need, you assume a position which is which might be intolerable to the... You are the benefactor, or whatever the word is, and the person you help is obviously, if he or she can't help himself, and you help him or her, then you are helpless. And again, that is intolerable.
Yeah, it's like there's a book, I haven't read it, but I kind of know the title, and it's something like the unbearable lightness of being or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not really unbearable, but it depends on what you're used to. Again, like the famous example with a fish which lives deep in the ocean under great pressure. If you take it out, it just dies, it explodes, because it's used to great pressure. So the same is here. He says, I'm a normal person, I'm not a saint, a good. The good will be intolerable for me, because I'm used to pressure, I'm used to dark and heavy stuff. Yeah, so good is intolerable. It's how you can't look directly at the sun. You can't look directly at God without being burst apart. The same as here. But then again, good is intolerable. It's not tolerant. It's not seeking to please people. Yeah, good can be really stern and strict. The good.
Can it?
Yes, and it always is. Think about the doctor who needs to make an operation, and the doctor must hurt you a bit to help you. If he is tolerant, like oh no, if I make an injection, oh no, he won't like it. No, better not touch him. Oh no, if I cut his leg off, oh no, poor lad, no, I should not do it. That's a bad idea. Think about his feelings, no, and then the person dies. Yeah, so good must be intolerable and merciless.
Sounds horrible.
No, it isn't, it doesn't. Because otherwise you just please people to make them pleased at the moment, at the second, but what's good with that? Again, it's like spoiling children. If you're never strict to your children, you have no discipline, you just let them do what they like, who do you get when they grow up? Little spoiled brats. You do. So good has to be intolerable. Or again,
If it is intolerable, is it good?
Because it's good. Because it doesn't aim to hurt you, it aims to help you.
Well, it helps you by hurting you, is it absolute good?
Okay.
Isn't there an element of evil?
No, there isn't. Again, if you think about Zion, we don't talk about human beings who might be confused, who might get some kind of wrong ideas. Like, oh, if I cut people's fingers, they will be much happier. Oh, why do people need noses? It's very ugly. If I cut people's noses, they will be much more beautiful, much more happy. No, we talk about Zion here, the good, the big G, good. Again, if you talk about like Christian tradition or Jewish tradition, doesn't matter. If you talk about religion and God, then very often you can see there how a person has to go through some dark stuff, dark and heavy stuff, and painful stuff to come out relieved, come out much better. And something that seems to be a curse is a blessing in disguise. You think your world is falling apart, but a day later it turns out it was for your good. And you're more happy than ever. You just had to bear for a short while. Or a long while. Yeah. Again, good is intolerable in many ways. Okay, the intolerable good. And that's one thing that I know well. I'm damned and I'll be damned to hell. So if we look at the first version, it was different. Oh, that line here. Eternal torches, something, something well. Where so well?
Where as well?
Where as well, yeah. Eternal torches were as well. It damn me if I go to hell. He changes it to, there's one thing that I know well, and damned if I'll be done to hell. So, damn me if I go to hell to, I'm damned if I'll be done to hell is like, sounds nicer.
Yeah.
There's a play on words.
Yeah,
It's okay.
and of course it's much more sort of, it's the words of a determined person.
Uh-huh. And again, not a holy saint person who wouldn't say, oh, damn me.
Yes, I was on my way.
Yeah, maybe we need some light on. It's getting dark.
Well, in the middle of the wood, what
Oh,
would you
yeah.
expect? Yeah, good time. Yeah.
Where did we get the light? So there.
I think that one is for this little room there.
Ah, good. Much better. Oh, what a big difference, really.
Yeah.
Ой, я чуть не туда вышла.
Туда, вот.
А куда? А, да?
Да,
Вы,
сейчас
наверное, всем
туда.
показываете. Спасибо.
Не за что.
Okay, okay. So he has a plan, eternal torches were as well. He changes it to, there's one thing that I know well.
Yeah, well, eternal tortures means that you, as a writer, end up in hell. The final version means I'll be damned if I end up in hell, which is, of course, something playful and something sort of. But I'm determined not to end up in hell. That's what the final version says.
Yeah, and the original version, because he likes that line. He likes that line. He tried to put it into the second stanza. You see it crossed out. I think what he means to say here is that war is eternal torture as it is. So I'll be damned if I go to hell after that. I've had enough of hell here. I'm not going to hell. So I'm not going to Zion or to heaven because I'm not saint, I'm just a normal person. I don't think I'm good enough. Yeah? And I'm not going to hell because I've already been there. So why does he leave this line out? Because he tried to put it in first stanza, he tried to put it into the second stanza, and you look at the final version, you don't have it at all. So obviously it was an important idea. Oh, eternal torches. Yeah, so why leave it out in the final edition? Yeah, have some ideas?
I don't know. Do you really expect more tortures after you have experienced what you have gone through as a soldier?
Yeah, that's what he says. I had eternal torches here on earth, so why leave this line out? Because it's important to him. He writes it twice, and one of the lines is not crossed out in this one. Well, obviously he was thinking about, because he tried to put it into the second stanza.
What's your answer?
Well, maybe if you call war eternal torture, maybe it's not really what the soldier should do. Maybe he thought it wasn't like patriotic enough. Maybe he thought that maybe. I don't know. But then there's a conflict between how he feels, and he feels that war is eternal torture, and between what he feels and what he should be saying to other people. Because maybe he thinks, well, but if I write that war is just eternal tortures, maybe it's just too strong, maybe just people get disappointed in war and nobody gets fighting, and then that's the end of our...
Well, maybe it's like if you complain, I think I've deciphered the first word here in the first line.
Yeah,
it's the word
it?
grieve. Grieve.
Yeah, could be.
And he replaces these strong, well, they're not stronger, they are stronger in terms of emotion they produce, but they're more emotional. He replaces them with words which sound simpler and which do not sort of produce a feeling of our writer complaining or grieving about himself. Because when you say think, that's a very sort of neutral way of putting it. And the same is probably true about eternal tortures.
Yeah, could be. Good idea. Yeah, could be. Because all in all, he wants to create a light impression. Yeah, I think that might be an answer. So there's one thing I know well, and Dante will be down to hell, which is almost comic. But, the eternal tortures here. I don't want any more eternal tortures, I've had enough. It could be like a bit like complaining, yeah. So when I'm killed, don't wait for me. So each stanza begins with these words. When I'm killed. So, and he repeats it 3 times before if you count the title, which makes it a fact. If you say it 1 time or 2 times, it can be a suggestion. But if you say it 3 times, it makes it true, makes it a fact. So when I'm killed, it's like in case if you forgot what I was talking about, because it's such a trifle matter. So when I'm killed, don't wait for me. Walk in the dim corridor.
Dark corridor.
Yeah, so how is dark and dim?
Dim is, well, dark corridor means nearly black, and black is sort of maybe more negative, but it's also more sort of determined. It's better defined. While dim is something that is full of unexpected things, happenings, approaches. It might turn out to be a good way to go. It might turn out as a corridor that leads you to hell. It might be.
Yeah, you know, in some traditions, hell is a very cold place. Or maybe again, dark corridor is more standard, cliche, whether a dim corridor is a little bit more original. Okay.
Yeah, and of course, the dim corridor, well, dark means that you disappear completely. If you are walking the dim corridor, you
see shadows and movement, so yeah, maybe it's like, again, the confusion of the war. It's not dark, it's dim, because nobody really understands what's going on.
And the word that usually comes together with dim is dim light, so there's no darkness, there's some light, although dim one.
Yeah, you must have some light to have dimness. Otherwise it's just darkness. So suddenly we had wood, now we are in a corridor. Wow, interesting. From big place to a very narrow place. In heaven or hell, don't wait for me, or you must wait forevermore. I think it's more or less the same here. Maybe it was more hell. Is it more hell? Or you must wait forevermore. So again, who is it? You who is waiting or not waiting? Because it's someone who can just go to heaven or to hell freely, just wait for him. Oh, where do I go today? Let's go to heaven, meet Johnny, and tomorrow at 3:30, let's go meet Bob at hell. Yeah. So don't wait for me there, or you must wait forevermore. And if you think, oh, do I pray for him? Is he in heaven or is he in hell? Well, you'll never know because he's not there. So now we create our structure of reality. We have duality, two opposite sides, hell and heaven. And in binary logic, that's all. You can have either hell or heaven. But now we have fairies. We have Lewis Carroll's magic and logic, where we say, nah, we have the third option. Because normal linear logic doesn't have the third option, either A or B. Yeah, but a more interesting kind of logic says, it's neither A nor B, it's something else. So we have the fixed structure, because for most people it's either heaven or hell, there's no other option. And he says, well, I'm not in Zion, I'm not into keeping these fixed, rigid structures. I'm going to introduce something third. It's heaven, hell, and magic or poetry. You'll find me buried, living dead, in these verses that he read. So he tried to put into something about eternal torches. You'll find me buried here, not dead. Here he says, living dead, in these verses that he read. Yeah, so he leads us through the poem. He plays with us. He says, I'm not here, I'm not there. Where do you think I am? There. No, I'm not there. Right, you'll never guess. I'm right in front of you in that poem. Because if you're reading it, then I'm talking to you. Then I'm already here. How can you ask me where I am if if I'm just in front of you in this poem? You don't need to go any further. You'll find me buried. Yeah, but buried in what sense? How is he buried in the poem? Is there a dead body inside the poem, a dead spirit?
There's spirit, but it is not dead, and it is not sort of captured. It's ranging freely, doing whatever it wills. Yeah. So I might be buried. That's what he says, but.
Yeah, that's not the difference if you compare it with other poems of the kind when, oh, that's my immortal poem. then everybody else says, I'm alive in my poem, but here he says, I'm buried, I'm hidden in the poem. I'm somewhere inside it. Really, if you think about it, it's very deep magic, how we can read the words that have been written like 100 years ago, and the person is here. And yet, what is it? Just some funny little symbols on paper. And yet the person, Robert, he is there, he is talking to us, he is present as we read it, literally present. You'll find me buried, living dead in these verses that we read. So again, it's a trick, a game. You have read the verses already, you've done it. So while you're looking for me, you have already met me. I have been here all the while you're looking around trying to find me somewhere else. I was right here all the time. I've been waiting for you to notice. And not dead, he changes to living dead. Because not dead is just dead with a negation, and negations don't really work. He has life in it, living dead. So on one hand, he's not completely alive in it, but he's not really dead either. A bit like portraits in Harry Potter, where they had magical portraits which had the knowledge and the personality of the person, but it was not the real person. It wasn't even a ghost, it was just an echo, a copy. So something like that, I think. So you could talk to them, they could talk back to you like real people, but they wouldn't know any more than the person knew when the portrait was drawn, and whatever they would see while being on the wall. And even though they still remained the personality, they still were not the real people, less than ghosts. So here and not here, and same as with the poetry. So how many people die every day, every second? How many people did die in the war? But here he is. Here he is. You'll find me buried, living dead in these verses that you read. Okay. So when I'm killed, don't mourn for me. Again, he repeats it, he makes it a fact, he like, there's no doubt it will happen. Just, we're not even discussing it. Will I die or will I not die? It's a fact that I will. Don't mourn for me, so don't think of me, wait for me, don't mourn for me. So thinking is not doing. Thinking is inside you. It's not in a physical world. Waiting is more specific. You have to do something. Maybe he says like in heaven or hell, don't wait for me. So you go somewhere, you wait, you expect him to appear. You spend your time. You move around. You do something. Don't mourn for me is even more specific. You're even more involved in it, and each time there's a negation. So on one hand it happens, at the same time it's annihilated, there's a negation to it. So as we read it, on one hand he says, that's no matter, that's nothing, but the emotional response of the reader is increasing. We're thinking, then waiting, then mourning. So even though he tells us not to worry, we do worry more and more. Our emotional response grows from the poem. So when I'm killed, don't mourn for me. Shot, poor lad, so bold and young, killed and gone. Don't mourn for me. Here it's killed, poor lad.
Yeah. So shot is a bit swifter and a bit more concrete. Yeah. That's probably explains the placement, of course.
Because killed can be killed in many ways. Shot points more at war action, and then you don't want to repeat killed and killed.
Yeah. And again, he prefers
So brave
and young, so bold and young. Yeah.
I don't know what's the matter with brave and bold.
Well, probably bold. There's this sound bold that attracts him.
Maybe like old.
Yeah.
He's not old, he's young. Maybe that.
Bold and young, like contrasting these two. Yeah.
Killed and dead, and killed and gone. Again, dead is really abstract. Dead, what's dead? He says he's not dead, he's living dead. Killed and dead. Killed and gone is I don't know, is it worse? Gone, not within the memory. Disappeared completely. Not here anymore. Because if he's dead, he's there but dead. If he's gone, then there's no trace of him. There's no body, no picture, nothing. So you're not supposed to pity him. Yet we have it here, and yet we have it here. And yet he says, but don't do it, and yet he does it. Yeah, so where does he stand? What's his position? Are we supposed to mourn for him? Are we not supposed to mourn for him? Because on one hand, what he says is, it's okay. What he does is he shows it is a big thing. And whatever he says, there is a response. Shot, poor lad, so bold and young, killed and gone. Don't mourn for me. On your lips my life is hung.
Minutes.
Okay, good. 9 minutes is okay. On your lips my life is hung. Now that's really poetic. Because he pretends to be, no, I'm just a simple chap, nothing interesting. Well, that's just poetic. On your lips my life is hung. And again he says, it's not some spirits, it's not God, not Jesus, not some mysterious forces that bring me back to life. It's you, here and now, you, another human being. On your lips my life is hung. And it's as little as your lips. So life and lips.
Life and lips. And of course hung is also very little, very... and it's something that is clearly very precious.
And again we have the power of words. Because on your lips, not on in your eye, so you just look at it, but on your lips, because you're supposed to read it aloud, to give him voice, to discuss it, to try to communicate with him, to see what he has to tell you, to talk. On your lips my life is hung. So you may think, maybe it's like, no, the case of love, which is the case of life, like you kiss the sleeping princess and she wakes up, or you kiss the frog and he becomes a prince. On your lips my life is hung. Yeah, we have it too. Because as you read it, you don't treat it like a critic does, like, I don't like that comma here. How does he spell Cambrian? That's all wrong. You don't treat it like that. You read it like an intelligent, sentient being. And it is like a kiss of life to him, to the Sleeping Beauty. On your lips, my life is hung. So again, it's a person to person. It's not somewhere in heaven. It's not somewhere in hell. It's not somewhere far away, someone else. It's you here and now in this reality, today, this second. On your lips, my life is hung. And again, if he says on your lips, it's quiet, like reading lips. It's small, it's quiet, but it's his life here, his whole life. Oh, friends and lovers, you can save your playfellow from the grave.
Yeah, he began by saying lovers, and lovers is crossed out, replaced by O.
Yeah. Well, not lovers and friends, but friends and lovers. I guess it just, maybe it just sounds better in a technical sense. Or maybe he has more friends than lovers. You can save your playfellow something from the grave. What's that word?
Even.
Even. Your playfellow even from the grave. Yeah, that just makes the line too long. I don't remember the word here.
Can I just answer briefly and then we can restart now? Да. Да, добрый день. Вот не видели буквально. Yeah.
Another minute or two.
Minute or two.
It's just the last line. So yeah, you can say you can say, not you can say you can say, not anyone else. You can save your playfellow from the grave, because his name is Graves. So he is here quite literally. Yeah, so on one hand we talk about something as serious and dark as being killed, as wartime, all that misery. But we end up with
Playfellow.
friends, with lovers, with kissing, because on your lips, with kissing, with magic, like the kiss of life, bringing back to life. Being playful, playfellow. So somehow he can combine all those different aspects. The dark and horrible and light and playful. Your comments?
Yeah, that's certainly true. And again, the word even, that does not appear in the final version, makes it a bit more sort of dramatic, maybe melodramatic, and he gets rid of the word, maybe just to save the rhythm and also to sort of get rid of something that makes it a bit less condensed, less powerful.
Yeah, and that's again more childish in structure. These last two lines in stanzas Oh, you'll find me buried living. That in these verses that you read. Yeah. Oh, friends and lovers, you can save your playfellow from the grave. It's almost like a nursery rhyme.
Yeah.
In rhythm. Yeah. Okay, so I guess it's a really amazing little poem. When I'm killed, and you think, like, oh no, something dark and heavy and death and horror. And then you have, oh, friends and lovers and games and kissing. How can you do it? I don't know. I could do it. Phew.
Oh yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, we can finish happily. Thanks, Robert, for coming around to us today. Okay, that's it.
Given
Yeah, given
To
me
me.
by
Robert Graves,
Robert.
July something.
Yeah, 4th or 14th. Because you never know if you're going to survive till the end of the battle. You give it to someone else who can take it out. Good point.